I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it.
An explosive leak from within the British royal family has ignited a fierce wave of controversy. Queen Camilla has allegedly ordered the secret removal of Princess Charlotte's sole portrait from the family photo display at Clarence House, while leaving images of all other members untouched. The move was immediately perceived by palace staff as a direct snub against the Wales family, and within hours, word reached Prince William. What followed has reportedly plunged Clarence House into a state of high tension. Refusing to buy the excuse of a simple redecoration, William quietly gathered accounts from multiple staff members before launching a dramatic face-to-face confrontation with Camilla. According to royal insiders, the Prince of Wales delivered a chilling ultimatum: return Charlotte's portrait to its place, or he would expose the entire affair to the public. What drove the future king to break decades of royal protocol in such spectacular fashion? And what exactly did Camilla do to Charlotte's portrait that forced the palace into a stunning U-turn just 48 hours later? The morning sun lazily cast pale golden streaks across the ancient red brick walls of Clarence House. But on that particular morning, that superficial peace was shattered by a seemingly harmless void on the wall along the corridor leading to the reception room, the very place that housed the portrait collection of the new generation of the family. The first to notice the anomaly was Margaret, a housekeeper who had dedicated over 30 years of her life behind the closed doors of the palace. Margaret belonged to the old guard of the royal household, loyal, quiet, and possessing a memory that was precise to the millimeter regarding the placement of every antique. She had witnessed the darkest chapter of the 1990s, when Buckingham Palace was rocked by high-profile divorces and the tragic passing of Princess Diana. That very experience had forged in her a sharp intuition for the political toxic winds hidden beneath the guise of interior redecoration. As Margaret came to a halt before the rows of silver and precious wood frames, her breath caught in her throat. The portrait of Princess Charlotte, the daughter of the Prince and Princess of Wales, she of the radiant smile and eyes that bore the distinct likeness of the late Queen Elizabeth II, was gone. What caused Margaret's chest to tighten was not the prospect of a photograph being taken away for maintenance, but rather the context surrounding it. The photographs of Prince George, of young Prince Louis, and even those of other family members remained entirely intact, neatly arranged in their original spots. Only Charlotte's had been removed, leaving behind a blank space on the cream wall, noticeably lighter than the rest, since it had not yet been weathered by time and light. It was no coincidence. In the world of the British court, where every visual detail was a political message, a void such as this was equivalent to a silent decree. The shock quickly rippled through the ranks of the domestic staff like a subterranean current. Whispers began to echo behind the half-closed doors of the tea rooms and the laundry quarters. Word began to spread of a direct order, handed down late the previous night, originating from the office of Queen Camilla. Queen Camilla was the woman who had traveled a long, controversial road from the public vilification of being the third person in the marriage of the last century to officially ascending as queen in May 2023. For the past 3 years, she had tirelessly sought to consolidate her position, establishing a new order at Clarence House and Buckingham Palace. The official reason provided by her office was concise and bureaucratic: a rearrangement of the display to optimize natural lighting. Yet no one in the palace believed such a sophist explanation. To the longtime retainers, this was a cold, calculated maneuver. Charlotte was not merely a child. She was a symbol of future stability, the pride of the Wales family, who themselves enjoyed the absolute affection of the public, an adoration that at times eclipsed the brilliance of the current throne. The removal of her photograph, even in a semi-public corridor, was a subtle move to diminish their role, a gradual suffocation of the Wales family's influence within the royal imagery. It was a warning shot fired at Kensington, a method of asserting the supreme authority of the one who ruled Clarence House. Standing before the empty space on the wall, Margaret felt a flush of heat course down her spine. She saw history repeating itself, a cruelty wrapped in silk now targeting an 11-year-old child. Pondering for a long moment, she recalled the quiet bond of trust between herself and a loyal courtier at Kensington Palace, the residence of William and Catherine. Margaret knew full well the gravity of crossing the line, knowing that a single misstep could cost her her pension and banish her from royal circles forever. But compassion and indignation over the machinations aimed at the next generation triumphed over fear. The veteran housekeeper smoothed her crisp apron, stepped into a recessed corner of the west corridor, where the internal telephone sat silently in the shadows, and decided she would break the palace silence, igniting a confrontation Clarence House could never have anticipated. The atmosphere at Kensington Palace that afternoon was shrouded in a heavy, stifling silence, a stark contrast to the usual warmth of the young royal family. The news from Clarence House had arrived through unofficial channels, conveyed via a series of confidential and cautious messages from Margaret's trusted contact. When the unsealed yet profoundly heavy missive was placed upon the oak desk of the Prince of Wales, time seemed to stand still within the sun-drenched room in West London. Princess Catherine was the first to read the lines. The resilient nature and composed demeanor that had anchored her through years of media storms seemed to fracture in that fleeting moment. A profound sense of hurt registered in the mother's usually gentle eyes. Her heart tightened, not because a title was being threatened, but because an 11-year-old child, her little girl, was being used as a pawn in a cold game of power. She stepped closer to the window, looking out over the courtyard, where Charlotte once played fighting, to suppress a painful sigh from escaping her chest. Estrangement within this gilded world was nothing new to Catherine, but for that hostility to be directed so pointedly at an innocent child was beyond a mother's threshold of tolerance. Sitting opposite her, Prince William received the news with an entirely different reaction. There was no impulsive outburst, no sudden flash of rage. William's anger was a block of ice-cold sharp and entirely rational. He required no explanation from Clarence House to comprehend the deeper malice behind the act. To the future king, the removal of Charlotte's portrait was a silent repudiation of the Wales family's legacy, a direct slap to their standing within the current hierarchy of the monarchy. Instantly, William began to act with military precision. He picked up the telephone, contacting a few select security personnel and close aides responsible for coordinating operations between the two palaces. Each command was delivered in a low, decisive tone that brooked no delay. He instructed them to discreetly yet thoroughly verify the housekeeper Margaret's account through alternative pipelines at Clarence House. William demanded irrefutable evidence, specific timelines, and the names of those behind the previous night's directive. The deeper he dug into the incoming reports from those secured calls, his suspicion solidified into absolute certainty. This was a calculated campaign, and Charlotte was the sole target marked for marginalization. While waiting for the final dossier to be compiled, William stood up and paced slowly around the study. His gaze inadvertently fell upon an empty space on the opposite wall, where the sunlight streaming through the window created an interlacing pattern of light and shadow. That void, in a strange and cruel fashion, triggered a pocket of memory he had spent decades trying to bury. The recollections of a 15-year-old boy came rushing back, vivid and suffocatingly painful. William remembered the days following his parents' turbulent divorce, when photographs of Princess Diana began to quietly but systematically vanish from the corridors of Buckingham Palace and Windsor. He recalled the sheer helplessness of watching his mother's keepsakes being replaced, the way her presence was gradually erased from the official royal narrative by the machinery of power behind the throne. Back then, he had been too young to find a voice to defend his mother. But now, staring at the symbolic void left by his daughter, William realized the old game was being replayed by the very woman who had once been at the center of those ancient fractures. The chilling parallel between Diana's past and Charlotte's present ignited an unyielding resolve within William. He was no longer a teenage prince forced to bow to the rules of the palace. He was the Prince of Wales, the guardian of this monarchy's future, and above all, a father. Silence or concession at this juncture would merely green-light further encroachments from Clarence House. Catherine turned to look at her husband. She needed no words to understand the tempest roiling behind William's icy stare. She approached him, placing a gentle yet firm hand upon his shoulder, a silent vow that they would stand together in this battle. The final verification file was placed on the desk by his assistant with a quiet bow. William picked it up, glancing over the text that confirmed the order had been authorized by Queen Camilla's office. Without a moment's hesitation, he closed the folder, grabbed his coat, and walked straight toward the door. His eyes were fixed on the road leading to Clarence House. A face-to-face, uncompromising confrontation was now inevitable. And William knew with absolute certainty that he would not return without securing justice for his daughter. The polished black limousine swept through the iron gates of Clarence House before coming to an abrupt halt in front of the main entrance. As he stepped out of the vehicle, Prince William bore none of the relaxed demeanor typically expected of a royal descendant, paying a casual family visit. Every single stride he took across the marble floor exuded an invisible pressure, heavy and unyielding. The retainers lining the corridor bowed in unison, but the sharp intuition of those living within palace walls allowed them to instantly sense the tempestuous aura enveloping the Prince of Wales. The meeting took place in the small morning room in the East Wing, where Queen Camilla sat enjoying her tea by a window, overlooking a garden awash with blossoms. When William walked in, she betrayed no hint of surprise, merely setting her porcelain cup onto its saucer, with a gentle touch, maintaining the practiced smile and serene composure of someone long accustomed to undercurrents. The contrast between the somewhat haughty calm of the woman seated in the armchair and the spear-straight posture of the young prince pushed the tension in the room to its absolute peak. William wasted no time on hollow pleasantries. He cut straight to the heart of the matter in a low voice that possessed a terrifying commanding force. His gaze locked onto his stepmother, demanding a satisfactory answer for the absurd void on the reception corridor wall. In response to this direct interrogation, Camilla maintained her nonchalance. She deftly deployed highly technical arguments regarding interior design, speaking of the balance of light and the necessity of refreshing the residence's aesthetic space to account for the photograph's absence. Her justification sounded perfectly reasonable on the surface, delivered as lightly as though removing the portrait of a royal princess were merely a trivial decision made by an interior housekeeper. Yet William completely rejected these calculated euphemisms. To him, every word passing from Camilla's lips only heightened the insult against the Wales family. He emphasized with ironclad resolve that this had never been a story about picture frames or wall paint. This was a core issue of a legitimate standing of honor and of the legacy of those who would inherit the throne. The fact that only Charlotte's portrait had been taken down while those of the other members remained intact was all too clear a testament to a malicious intent to isolate. When Camilla deliberately tried to steer the conversation in another direction, to downplay the gravity of the situation, William played his decisive card. He slowly placed the confidential dossier gathered from Kensington onto the small wooden table between them. Inside were detailed testimonies logs recording the exact timelines and undeniable proof originating from her very own staff at Clarence House. Unveiling this truth struck a heavy blow against the Queen's mask of confidence. A sudden silence descended as Camilla realized her stepson had not come here to argue, based on emotion, but that he held the winning hand with irrefutable evidence. William's anger did not erupt into shouting, but it caused the air in the room to grow thick. Looking at the woman before him, he saw with increasing clarity the cold machinations intended to cast a shadow over the next generation of his family. Refusing any compromise or double-edged promise, William delivered his ultimatum in a tone that was chilling, yet carried the weight of a final verdict. He demanded that the portrait of Princess Charlotte be returned to its original place immediately. His final warning was issued slowly. If Clarence House failed to rectify this mistake internally before sunset 2 days from now, he would personally handle it in a far more public and thorough manner, a prospect the current throne would surely never wish to face before the international media. William turned and walked away, leaving behind a terrifyingly quiet space and a Queen Camilla forced for the very first time to confront the fierce resistance of the future king. Behind the resolute departure of the Prince of Wales, the door of the morning room closed with a dull thud, leaving behind a thick, icy atmosphere. Queen Camilla remained motionless in the velvet-upholstered armchair, her hands tightly gripping the porcelain cup that had long since grown cold. For the first time in years of unchallenged authority at Clarence House, the sharp-witted woman felt a major fracture in her control. The dossier William left on the table was a declaration of war in black and white, stripping away every machination hidden beneath the guise of interior redecoration. She chose silence, a stubborn silence, yet one filled with the tense calculations of a seasoned politician trying to find an honorable exit before the actual storm swept through. For the next 48 hours, Clarence House sank into an unprecedented state of heaviness. The endlessly long corridors, already quiet, grew even more suffocating. Palace staff moved like shadows, doing their utmost to minimize the sound of leather shoes and silver tea trays. No one dared look directly toward the Queen's office, yet the hurried glances and meaningful nods betrayed the turmoil brewing within. William's ironclad warning of a public resolution had leaked and rippled through the ranks of the domestic staff like a subterranean current. Everyone understood that if the Prince of Wales decided to expose this matter to the media, it would deal a fatal blow to the palace's perpetually fragile credibility. The tension reached its peak on the afternoon of the second day. Over at Kensington Palace, William and Catherine maintained a terrifying composure. They issued no further reminders, and that very silence became the most crushing pressure, weighing on Clarence House as the ultimatum's deadline ticked closer to the final line. On the opposing side, Camilla understood William's nature perfectly. He never made idle threats. His fierce determination to protect his family carried the powerful rebellious blood of the late Princess Diana, and she knew she could not risk gambling the reputation of the throne on a head-on confrontation where she had already lost the moral high ground. The ultimate concession had to come, even if it bore the bitterness of one forced to retreat. At twilight on the second day, an urgent and classified directive was issued from the Queen's office. Royal Property Management staff suddenly received orders to assemble in the art archives, where Princess Charlotte's portrait was temporarily being kept beneath an ash-gray dust sheet. The veteran carpenters and retainers carried out their task with utmost caution. They carefully removed the covering cloth, revealing the radiant face of the 11-year-old princess. Not a single person uttered a word, but within every heart rose a sense of relief mixed with awe for the authority of the Prince of Wales. When the final covering sheet was pulled completely down in the display gallery, preparing for the reinstallment, all the staff members present on the scene were stunned. The photograph was not merely being returned to its old spot, but a milestone alteration had been made, signaling an entirely different conclusion to this covert war. The portrait of Princess Charlotte had returned to the Gallery of Honor at Clarence House. But it was no quiet restoration born out of the humiliation of defeat. The new arrangement was explosive, a spectacular reversal of fortune that forced anyone stepping through the reception corridor that morning to stop in profound astonishment. The photograph no longer occupied the obscure corner of the previous display. Now it was positioned at the very center of the primary wall, right where the finest streams of natural light flooded in from the Gothic arched window. The entire surrounding structure had been rearranged to highlight the delicate, radiant face of the 11-year-old princess. The simple oak frame of the past had been replaced by one of solid silver, intricately carved with classical royal motifs that shimmered beneath the crystal chandelier. But the detail that sent shock waves through the household was the small gold-plated bronze plaque mounted directly beneath the frame. Upon it, deeply and formally engraved in clear lettering, was her full official title, Princess Charlotte of Wales. This act, by every metric of palace language, was an absolute and complete capitulation under the fierce pressure from Kensington Palace. Engraving the official title so clearly on a bronze plaque was more than an aesthetic protocol. It was an ironclad declaration, an indelible stamp upon Charlotte's legitimate, independent, and secure standing within the royal bloodline. To the entire domestic staff and members of the Inner Palace Council, this alteration served as an overt political message that the position of the Wales family was sacrosanct and that no personal directive or covert favoritism could ever shake or diminish their influence. Throughout the entire process of the portrait being hung and finalized in its new grander-than-ever position, Queen Camilla maintained an absolute and total silence. She did not appear in the corridor, nor did she offer a single explanation, a written clarification, or any public reaction to this turning of the tide. Choosing to remain out of sight within her private study in the West Wing, she accepted this concession as the necessary price to preserve the superficial peace of the throne, averting the global media crisis William had threatened to ignite. The retreat into silence by a woman inherently so proud and sharp-witted was the clearest testament that she had recognized the limits of her own power when confronted by a resilient and fiercely rational Prince of Wales. As the final craftsmen packed away their tools and walked away, leaving the quiet corridor bathed in rich golden sunlight, Charlotte's photograph seemed to radiate the aura of a silent triumph. The cold power game that had begun with a seemingly harmless void on the wall had now concluded with a confirmation of status more unyielding than ever before. The proud presence of the new portrait stood as a wordless proclamation, bringing an end to one of the most tense and dramatic covert confrontations behind the ancient red brick walls of Clarence House. As the undercurrents at Clarence House completely settled, a genuine peace finally returned to the sun-drenched drawing room at Kensington Palace. In stark contrast to the tension that had gripped the preceding days, the atmosphere now was as gentle and warm as a late autumn afternoon. Princess Catherine sat on the long, softly upholstered floral sofa, her gaze brimming with protective tenderness, as she watched her young daughter Charlotte intently turning the pages of a book beside her. Catherine reached out to gently stroke her daughter's long hair, a gesture holding all the love and reassurance of a mother. She understood that this 11-year-old child, though carrying noble royal blood and raised to withstand pressure, was still just an innocent soul needing shelter from the complex machinations of the adult world. Speaking in a soothing tone, Catherine softly conversed with and comforted her daughter. She did not delve deeply into the power plays or the fractures behind the palace walls, but instead deftly used gentle words to ease any lingering questions in the little girl's clear eyes. She helped her daughter understand that while the outside world could sometimes harbor mistakes and injustice, the most important thing was that she would never have to face them alone. The love of her parents and the bond of the Wales family would always stand as the most formidable fortress, ready to shelter and support her against any storm life might bring. Across the room, Prince William stood quietly by the large window, casting his gaze out over the estate's sprawling courtyard. Composure had returned to his resolute features, but deep within his eyes remained a cold, clear-eyed foresight regarding the future. The triumphant conclusion of the recent confrontation at Clarence House did not cause William to lower his guard. He understood all too well that the royal world was never a placid lake. The challenges and the efforts to marginalize or diminish the influence of the Wales family would undoubtedly persist in various subtle guises down the road. But now, his standing was different. His fierce defense of Charlotte this time was not merely an instinctive outburst of fatherly love, but a long-term strategic message sent to anyone who harbored intentions of harming his children. The swift and grand restoration of Charlotte's portrait at Clarence House had become a covert legend whispered among the staff with profound respect. To the entire framework of the monarchy, it served as undeniable proof of the ever-growing authority and stature of the Prince of Wales. In William, they saw the image of a decisive future king, one who possessed both the sharp intellect and the political acumen required to safeguard his lineage's legacy. William turned back to look at his wife and daughter, a rare smile of relief touching his lips. He stepped closer, placing a steady hand upon Catherine's shoulder, a wordless acknowledgement of shared resolve and unity. This silent battle had drawn to a close, and William emerged from it with absolute equanimity. He had proven through action and an iron will that he was prepared to do whatever it took to ensure his children's future would be shaped by their own merit and legitimate standing, never to be manipulated by anyone beneath this royal roof. After reading the story, do you think Prince William's decisive action in confronting Queen Camilla demonstrates the mettle of a future king, or is it simply a father's protective reaction to defend his family? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.